Thank you very much for making a date today on the marketplace. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, is undertaking a forensic audit of some 21 investment firms and fund managers in the country. The audit is to allow the regulator have a fair idea of the financial positions of these firms, as well as their ability to stay in business. Deputy Director of the Commission, Paul Abebiu, in an interview, hinted the SEC will take action against these firms after the process is completed. He was speaking at the Stanley Dialogue Series in Accra on the investment industry's survival.
Going is to assess the level of exposure the firms have, the level of risks in those businesses, and then coming out of that to have a better understanding of the status of their operations. In our regular inspections, we get an appreciation of the state of these firms, but sometimes you need a third party to come in to verify, one, where are the assets, two, like how we talk about the interconnectedness, because if you understand the interconnectedness, you get a better appreciation of what actions you can take coming out of that. Coming out of that will obviously take a decision. Some firms may have to be wound up, other firms may be recoverable. So that if their portfolio is in good standing and they can recover from where their positions are, we'll ask them for a roadmap on how to address the challenges they face. And how they also address investor concerns. And we hope that coming out of this, certain significant actions will be taken to resolve some of the challenges in the industry.
Are we going to see a revocation of a license?
It's highly likely. Some firms have actually surrendered their licenses, but we'll take certain actions. Some will involve revocation, some will involve suspension, but some also will involve restructuring, right? So sometimes when a business gets into difficulties, there's a need to conduct a restructuring of the operations and restructuring of obligations.
Meanwhile, Head of Supervision at the Bank of Ghana, Osei, has entreated financial institutions and investors with locked-up funds at the Consolidated Bank to report to the Bank of Ghana. According to him, the central bank has instructed the CBG to pay funds of all investment firms and other financial institutions.
Place your money with an asset company of a bank. The assets and liabilities of those companies were not transferred to CBG. A lot of instances, management of the central bank directed that CBG should pay all deposits of rural banks and savings and loans and finance houses. So if you are here and you have money with CBG, rural bank, finance house, savings and loans, and you have not been paid, please come to my office. Because that instruction was given, and CBG is expected to comply. And for me, I have seen the numbers, what CBG has paid off so far. And if you still have a deposit with CBG, and you're a finance company, savings and loans, whatever, rural bank, and you've not been paid, come. But please, if that money is encumbered, if you have used that money to take a facility, don't come. Yes, because they come to my office and you begin to ask the questions only to realize that the money is encumbered. They've used the money as a collateral to take money.
Interesting developments there. Let's still stay within the financial sector for a while. Philip Namfuri is going to join me quite shortly for some updates on the IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies making a case for government to reduce its appetite for borrowing from both the local and international markets. Now, according to the IFS, despite a consistent reduction in monetary policy rates and inflation, lending rates are still on the higher side. They said this at a pre-budget review in Accra. Let's have a recap of the story.
Despite the Bank of Ghana's quest to drive down lending rates, the monetary policy rate has been maintained at 16% for the third time. Some businesses and retail leaders say they are yet to experience the manifestation of the significant reduction in interest rates. According to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, government's move to borrow more has contributed to the slow reduction in interest rates. Senior fellow at the IFS, Leslie Dwight Mensah, has been speaking ahead of the mid-year budget review,
where they will invest their deposits to generate yield. And if you have a lot of demand for debt from government and quasi-government entities, then they're going to pack more of their funds, okay, in those securities, and that could affect how much then they have left to lend to their clients, particularly in the retail sector. So there could be a link. As we have seen, the average lending rate has responded slowest to the improvements in inflation and the decline in the policy rate.
Meanwhile, on revenue management, the Institute fears if government fails to tackle issues of compensation in the public, the economy might be weakened. Dr. Saeed Bouache is an economist at the IFS.
And not much can be done. In the long run, I feel things like compensation of employees, something drastically needs to be done. In the long run, the government did well in 2017 by capping the transfer to these statutory funds. And we propose that the government has to review the whole program of these transfers, the year marking. The government took the easiest portion of what we proposed, that cap it, they did. But review it. Some of these, those that are not so necessary, essential in the system, you can close them down and bring the monies involved to the Senate.
The IFS is urging the Minister of Finance to implement measures that will open up employment opportunities for the youth in the extractive industry. Ibn Sabute's report for Joy Business.
Well, so we want to get a clear understanding of these issues that have been going on at the IFS pre-budget briefing, and I've been joined by my colleague Philip Namfuri, who is going to help us with this education. Philip, a lot more activities going on at the IFS briefing.
Indeed. So yesterday they made a point about government reducing the participation of foreign investors in the economy. And it's key because when we have these investors coming in, they come in with forex or foreign exchange, and when they are going out of the economy, they take it out. So we looked at just one part of the economy when it comes to debt instruments, so borrowing from the financial markets. How much of it belongs to foreign investors? We have that infographic. Let's let our viewers look at it and we'll continue our discussion. All right.
All right, so that was the total debt rankings in the debt markets. Now, Philip, so 27 billion as it is.
Very high figure. Yeah.
Foreign investors. What does it mean?
Okay, so foreign investors, as of June 2019, hold 30% of the debt in the market, which means that imagine these foreign investors decided to exit the Ghanaian market. 30% of our debt out of 91 billion is being held by these foreign investors. And when they're going back, like we said, they will need a foreign exchange. So imagine them taking all this back. And this is just in the debt market. Can you imagine their stakes in the equity side, in the stock market also? So this is why the IFS and other bodies have been calling for a limitation of this. We know that the government has been promoting local content and trying to get local investors to hold a stake when a foreign entity comes in.
Exactly.
But this is just one part. Imagine 27 billion out of your economy by foreign investors. You can imagine that.
So that means there's a perfect correlation between the level of borrowing as well as the interest rates.
Okay, so this borrowing is both government and the private sector. If you extract the government part out, the 91-day bill, 182-day, and the bonds, you realize that
commercial banks.
Yes, you realize that foreign investors still play a key role in government debt. So how much they lend to government, or how much government borrows from them. And we've heard the finance minister, the governor, mention that the foreign investors indeed, and we saw the ripple effects it had on our economy earlier on in the year when the cedi was tumbling. But you realize that on the borrowing part, when government is looking for funds, there's a squeeze when it comes to the private sector. So because government is virtually risk-free, investors, big investors, comfortable, exactly, convenience to give them their money. There's also another infographic that I put together just to show how banks are rather channeling their funds into these investments rather than to lending. So let's take a look at that.
All right, so this infographic simply means a lot more commercial banks are now putting their monies into buying government instruments and so on and so forth. Why this?
Okay, so you know we've been discussing non-performing loans as a reason for some of the failures in the banking sector. And banks are in it to maximize their shareholder value and on the side make profit. So if in your quest to make profit, you give a loan to Emmanuel Abajo or George Weafe, and you realize that they will not bring you back all the money you gave them, and you go and give it to government, and at the end of 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, government comes to give back your money. Why would you go and lend money to somebody else? So he said that over a course of 3 years, they've reduced their lending from 42% of their assets
to the private sector
to 20%, 20-something%. So you realize that they are giving us less loans, and they are giving government more in terms of lending to government through government treasury bills and bonds.
Is it what can be described as crowding out?
Okay, so yes, in that sense, because government also has a dire fiscal need, and we've discussed our fiscal issue last week on PM Express Business Edition, and we've seen that they need these funds. So where again would they tend to? When they go out for the Eurobonds, there are implications. We need to grow our domestic market, so they are doing it inside. Let's look at one more infographic and see that banks are moving away from short term to long term. Let's take a look at that one.
Right, so the latest one obviously indicating that banks are now going in for longer term government securities than shorter ones. What exactly is this so?
So you realize that when this government came in, they spoke about reprofiling our debt and lengthening the maturity profile and putting our yield curve back in an upward sloping manner. It was inverted at first. Inverted meaning that there were more short-term borrowing than long-term. Now so government is moving to more long-term, and the banks are also responding from this infographic by cutting their holdings in short term. That's the 91 day, 182 and 1 year to the long term bonds. And this is what they're doing. So more money for government, less money for you and I, all things being equal.
Thank you very much, Philip Namfuri, for that education there. Now, moving on to other stories. The microfinance sector seems to be bouncing back gradually after the Bank of Ghana revoked the licenses of over 300 microfinance companies as part of efforts to sanitize the sector. CEO of Universal Savings and Loans, one of the surviving microfinance companies, Koyo Fufi, tells Joy Business the uncertainty that surrounded the cleanup exercise took a lot of business away, while the industry recorded a lot of hasty withdrawals. However, he says after a while, activities have bounced back and the confidence level is gradually improving.
With the recent development, that is the Bank of Ghana's exercise of revoking the licenses of over 347 microfinance companies. The few of us who were left, it looks like within the period, people were not too sure as to whether that was the end of it, and therefore people became a bit skeptical. But then, so for Universal Microfinance, in the first, within the first week, 2 weeks, we got people who were trying to withdraw their money, and some did withdraw because they were not too sure. But when we took time to explain to them that this exercise is rather something that will ensure that the institutions that are left are that credible that people wouldn't have to worry about it before they do business with them, they've rather gained much more confidence in us. And in fact, the whole of where our head office is, Malam here, we are like the only microfinance company that was left to continue operation. And the people have now appreciated that we are that credible and reliable, and as we may see, very dependable. So business is quite better even than just before the exercise. Prepared in the sense that we've always managed to
It's on the marketplace. Let's turn our attention from the financial sector now to another important area. The Ghana Police Service yesterday declared its intention to deploy personnel at the Opera Square here in Accra to prevent a possible clash between Ghanaian retail traders and their Nigerian counterparts. This was after some members of the Ghana Electrical Dealers Association locked up shops owned allegedly by some Nigerians at the Opera Square. Charles Aite is currently at the Opera Square in Accra now to ascertain the condition there. Afterwards, he joins us live now with some updates. Charles.
Mr. Rafi, so as you rightly stated, the Ghana Police Service has deployed some members on here at the Opera Square. But I can tell you on authority that the reopening of the shops that were closed yesterday have been scheduled for tomorrow. Initially, it was scheduled for today, but we understand that both leadership of the Ghana Union of Traders Association and that of the Nigerian Union of Traders Association are currently in talks on the best way forward in the coming months. But I do have here with me one individual. He's a retailer. His shop was closed down, I think yesterday or whatsoever, and he's here to explain to me what exactly happened, his experiences and what the updates has been so far. So you've been here today. Yesterday we had the shutdown of several shops. How has the atmosphere been like today? Has it been calm?
No, it's not calm. It's still as it was yesterday. They decided that they are going to take the law into their own hand because the government is not listening to them. As I heard that, I quickly rushed from work to come and stay in the office so that they will not lock my shop. Unfortunately for me, I was there when they came. Then I told them that, please, I heard that they are coming. I'm a Ghanaian, and I took my ID card, gave my ID card to them, gave them my documents. They never look at the document, never listened to me. They started heckling me, throwing my things at me. They broke a lot of my lights.
So your shop is closed as we speak?
It's closed as at now, and I'm not working. I came to see the chairman, but I understand he's not around. So now he has not come. Okay. I don't know whether tomorrow they'll come and open it. Okay. But I don't know what is going to happen because I have other people who I've employed, and I don't know how if they continue with this, everybody's going to be in the house.
All right, so this is just one concern that you did hear, Emmanuel, regarding some of the affected retailers here at Opera Square whose shops were closed down. But if we could pan around, you could see that it's kind of a busy arena here at the very down basement of the Opera Square. Now, these shops are predominantly owned by Ghanaians or indigents in that regard. But if you go upstairs, if you climb the stairs upward, you find that most of the shops have been closed down, and these are predominantly those owned by the foreigners. as it stands now, the Ghana Police Service has made it very clear to us that the closure of such shops is criminal and it's liable to arrest. So in the next coming weeks, we're going to be expecting the Ghana Police Service issue out arrests on persons who close the shops of foreigners. Of course, the Accra Regional Head of the Police Command, Superintendent Kusifori, has indicated to us that the closure of shops is absolutely criminal, and that whether it comes from the quarters of foreigners or indigents, they're going to be arrested. So this is information that we're gathering as at now. We're also gathering from the quarters of the Ghana Indian Traders Association that they will be helping the police with investigations as it has started, and they will as well concur to the police's demand of them having to reopen their shops. So this is information we're getting. But in terms of security is very safe. It's very safe and very calm here. Amidst tensions from both sides of the divide, Emmanuel.
So yesterday, the police said they were going to deploy personnel at the location. Have you seen any presence, or have they done otherwise?
Well, as said this morning, we did pick up from the Accra Police Command that about 5 police personnel were deployed to this place. Why? Because they had word of some hitches between the foreigners and the indigents. Of course, we're not here to cover that particular incident, but some arrests were made, we gather. About 2 persons were arrested, and they're currently helping with investigations. As of now, we just have 1 police vehicle at the car park of the Opera Square, and they are just monitoring events as they unfold.
All right, many thanks for that update, Charles Aite. You take care of yourself as we meet again in the office. Charles Aite reaching us live from the Opera Square. Before we go, the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA, Gloria Hiaji, has called on the state to be mindful of the economic effects of the closure of radio stations. She believes the shutdown of a radio station does not only deprive citizens of access to information, but also hampers the economic progress of the state.
Over the past years, the role of the media has only been limited to the dissemination of information. Many are, however, oblivious to the fact that media outlets are also businesses owned by shareholders and individuals with profit motives. The attacks on media houses and journalists in recent times have obviously derailed the gains made in the Press Freedom Index. According to the 2019 index, Ghana dropped 4 places to 27 from 23. At the back of Multimedia's campaign to defend press freedom in Ghana, Joy Business caught up with the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA, Gloria Hiaji, who highlighted the economic impact of the closure of radio stations.
When a radio station gets shut down, I believe everybody gets affected, from the listener to the advertiser to the radio station owners themselves and management and to government. They all get affected. The economy gets affected in the sense that if you talk about business, the business itself, there is a contract, whether implied or actual, between advertisers, the advertising industry, and the radio station, that's the broadcaster. So probably, and I think I got a few calls as well in that relation, in that direction. Some of these radio stations had contracts.
And we will certainly bring you the full story on Business Life later this afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Ampuaji. That's it for the Marketplace. Have a good afternoon.